In the 1930s, Paraguay and Bolivia went to war for possession of North Chaco, a dry, sweltering expanse of scrub and forest located between the two countries. North Chaco forms part of the larger Gran Chaco Plains, a vast region that in the present day extends into northern Argentina, western Paraguay, eastern Bolivia, and a small section of western Brazil. During the colonial era, Spain administered the Gran Chaco as a separate territory. Then in the early 1800s, when the South American countries surrounding Gran Chaco gained their independences, the region became disputed territory. However, the delineation of the borders around Gran Chaco was not actively pursued because of the region's harsh climate and the mistaken belief that it contained few natural resources. Then following the War of the Triple Alliance, many areas of Gran Chaco were annexed by the victorious countries. Consequently, what remained undecided was North Chaco, the area straddling Paraguay and Bolivia. Bolivia presented colonial-era documents supporting its ownership of North Chaco. In turn, Paraguay took a proactive approach to stake its claim to North Chaco, enticing wealthy farmers to build ranches there and selling lands to foreign investors. Furthermore, North Chaco's indigenous tribe, Guarani, is ethnically and culturally related to native Paraguayans, and Paraguay's other national language, apart from Spanish, is Guarani. Soon, Paraguayans gained dominance in the eastern section of North Chaco. Bolivians who settled there were met with varied responses from the Paraguayan government, from issuing weak diplomatic protests to violently evicting the Bolivian settlers. Officials from Paraguay and Bolivia met a number of times to try and work out a common border, but these failed to achieve anything pertinent, as no urgent reason existed to map out this seemingly worthless piece of land. All this changed when oil was discovered at the foothills of the Andes Mountains, located in Bolivia's western end of the Chaco, where soon Standard Oil was producing commercial quantities of oil. And thus, landlocked, Bolivia needed an outlet to the sea to export the oil. It looked to the disputed North Chaco via the Paraguay and Paraná rivers to gain access to the Atlantic Ocean. This scenario was not lost to Paraguay. Backed by Royal Dutch Shell, Paraguay also desired North Chaco's potential oil wealth. With foreign oil companies promising them huge profits, Paraguay and Bolivia pursued vigorous claims to North Chaco, with the region quickly becoming militarized as both countries built army garrisons called fortines deep inside the unoccupied areas. Tensions rose and fighting inevitably followed. Mediation efforts by the United States and other Latin American countries failed, and by the early 1930s, Paraguay and Bolivia were engaged in an arms race, purchasing foreign weapons aimed at settling their long-standing dispute. And with North Chaco soon bristling with fortines, war became inevitable. During the 1920s, many incidents of skirmishes took place between small units of Bolivian and Paraguayan forces. Full-scale war broke out following two small armed encounters for control of Lake Pitiantuta, which had recently been discovered by the Paraguayans and was mutually desired for its water in the otherwise dry environment. The Bolivian military then sent thousands of reinforcements and then launched an offensive that captured 3 Paraguayan outposts, including strategic Fortín Boquerón. However, patriotic fervor ran even higher in Paraguay, where general mobilization was called, leading thousands of zealous Paraguayans joining the army and increasing its small force of 4,000 to 60,000 soldiers within a short period of time. In 1933, Bolivian forces launched 2 offensives aimed at seizing the whole North Chaco and advancing right up to Asunción, Paraguay's capital. These offensives gained some ground but had sputtered by July 1933. The Paraguayan army, now fully mobilized, counterattacked and seized the initiative, which it would hold for the rest of the war. A series of offensives starting in August 1933 through 1934 allowed Paraguayan forces to capture nearly the entirety of North Chaco. Paraguay purchased only the cheaper weapons owing to budgetary constraints. As it turned out, these weapons were light and ideally suited for portability in the region's sweltering climate. Also crucially, Paraguay had a rail system extending to North Chaco that transported troops and supplies to the front lines. Furthermore, Paraguayan forces avoided frontal combat because of their limited resources in men and material. Instead, they fought in small, highly mobile teams that bypassed, encircled, and destroyed the much larger Bolivian army units. By contrast, the Bolivian army possessed more powerful military equipment, including light tanks and a larger air force, which however proved inconsequential in the war. The Bolivian command used static defenses and frontal attacks against entrenched Paraguayan positions, ignored air reconnaissance information, and had poor logistics and road infrastructures, more crucially for water. Insufficient water to the Bolivians fighting at the front lines decided many battles, with whole units surrendering when their water ran out, while separated Bolivian soldiers perished from thirst. In 1935, the fighting reached into undisputed Bolivian territory itself, the Andes foothills. There, the results were different as Paraguayan offensives were repulsed, sometimes with heavy losses. The Paraguayan military then realized that while it had achieved its objectives in North Chaco, its forces could not advance further into Bolivia without incurring heavy losses. Furthermore, the governments of Paraguay and Bolivia were alarmed that the massive, ever-rising human and financial tolls were bringing their countries to ruin. On June 12, 1935, in a truce mediated by Argentina, Paraguay and Bolivia agreed to end the war. The issue of North Chaco was brought before an arbitration panel consisting of South American countries. In its decision, 3/4 of North Chaco was awarded to Paraguay and 1/4 to Bolivia. Paraguay was also required to allow Bolivia access to the Paraguay River and to specified ports and rail facilities inside Paraguay. In the area awarded to Paraguay, only in 2012, or nearly 80 years after the war had ended, oil of commercial quantity was finally found. By contrast, in the area awarded to Bolivia, with its portion located near the Andes oil fields, significant oil deposits were readily found and extracted. Eventually, however, an outlet for Bolivia's oil was made by pipeline through Brazil, rendering the original plan of oil tanker movement through the Paraguay River remaining undeveloped.